Okay, welcome everyone. Parsha Shavua, Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. You're watching on Be There Israel and Or Chadash. Okay, L'chaim. L'chaim everyone, L'chaim. Hope everyone won't mind me drinking some hot tea in between here. Okay, tonight we're learning Parsha Tisa. And actually, before we begin, I want to dedicate this class to the neshama of Alexander ben Shmuel, who left the world last week. And he should have an aliyat neshama. Very, very, very brave person who fought cancer for many years and lived far longer than the doctors ever imagined. But he left the world this last week, and so our learning tonight should be an aliyat neshama for Alexander ben Shmuel. Okay, tonight we're learning Parsha Tisa, and because Purim is this Wednesday night, and here in Yerushalayim, Shushan Purim is on Thursday night. So we're going to put a little bit of Purim into the learning tonight. How can we not? Okay, so we'll start and we'll finish with the sin of the golden calf. The first half of the Parsha is dealing with many other things, but the whole second half of the Parsha is dealing with the sin of the golden calf, which, according to many, was like the most serious sin of the Jewish people in all of history. It's like an archetypal type of sin. And we're going to learn a little bit why that is and the results of it and its connection with Purim, the story of Purim. So we'll start with that in preparation to receive the Torah. In Parsha Yitro, it says that God came to Moshe and told him, you'll be a nation of priests, you'll be a holy nation, a special chosen nation. But first he says, speak to Beit Yaakov. Remember, we learned this. Speak to Beit Yaakov and speak to the children of Israel. And we saw that the word for speaking was different. And also the question, what's the difference between Beit Yaakov and Bnei Yisrael? So Rashi tells us that Beit Yaakov are the women, and the word is amirah. It's a soft kind of speaking, and lahagid to Bnei Yisrael. The men, they got like a tougher preamble. And the question is, so why speak to the women first? There were a number of reasons, but the one reason that we gave was that in the Garden of Eden, when God came to Adam and said, you can eat from all of the trees, but not the Eitz Hadat Tov V'Ra, not the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And he depended on Adam to tell Chava. And it didn't work out so well. So this time, we're told that God says, speak to the women first. In other words, this was like a tikkun for their being told secondhand. So God said, speak to the women first. So that was one of the things we learned. We got into it deeper than that, but that's what we said there. So there excuse me. There are many different hints to the receiving of the Torah as an attempt to return the world to the Garden of Eden. There are many, many different midrashim. One says that the pollution of the snake was taken away. Another one was that had we not worshipped the golden calf, death would have been abolished. The first tablets were written with the however we understand this, with the finger of God. It says, with Etzba Elokim, the finger of God. And we're told that the first luchot, compared to the second one, the second pair were made by Moshe. But the first one was miraculous, how the letters were engraved from the front and the back. So the whole idea is that then we were supposed to take the Torah into Eretz Yisrael, and Moshe would have been Mashiach, and it would have been what's called the final tikkun. The sin of the golden calf stopped all that, ruined all of that. That's why it's considered so serious, because the world was being positioned for final rectification. So I saw a Torah from Rabbi Ari Khan in his book on the Parshiot. Made a very interesting idea that we're told there was the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. And they were both in the middle of the garden. And the Midrash says that had we waited till Shabbos, then we could have eaten from the tree of life and then from the tree of knowledge. But what did we do? We ate first from the tree of knowledge and didn't even have a chance to eat from the tree of life. So Rabbi Khan explains, and there are many different explanations. This is one explanation. He explains that the tree of life is the Torah. And that's why, with the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, it was bringing the tree of life back to accessibility. It was supposed to be accessible. And the tree of knowledge is about experience. That's why right after they had to leave the garden, it said that Adam knew Chava, his wife. The same know as in the tree of knowledge. And there we're told it's a euphemism for marital intimacy. Experience. So Rabbi Khan explains that the problem in the Garden of Eden was, first we tasted experience, but outside of the parameters of the tree of life, outside of Torah. So the experience was totally subjective and wrapped up with ego and emotions and psychology and all of this. It wasn't in the framework of Torah. Whereas now when we're going to get the Torah at Sinai, we're going to get the tree of life, and then all of our experiences, if channeled through the viewpoint of the Torah, then it's in tikkun. It's in a state of rectification. So in the Garden of Eden, it was backwards. First we ate from the tree of knowledge and lost the ability to eat from the tree of life. At the giving of the Torah, it was supposed to fix that here is the Torah, and as we know, when we put the Torah away, after reading it on Shabbos, we say, Eitz Chaim here. It's a tree of life. That is what the Torah is. So that is just one of many, many different hints of the connection of the giving of the Torah at Sinai and this attempt to return to the Garden of Eden. We were also, the Midrash also says, everyone was healed. Anyone who had any sickness, and actually even Moshe, who stammered his whole life, he was also healed. He was also healed. And then the golden calf came. And what is the golden calf? It's experience. When you read, it says that they got up, they ate, and they drank, and they got up and began to engage in different, let's just say it was turning into an orgy. And they hadn't received the Torah yet. So first, again, they fell back into the same pattern of first experiencing and then thinking, okay, and then we'll get the Torah. But it needed that the Torah to be given first and received, and then experience would be in the right framework. So we see a beautiful hint to this in the name Chava, that in modern Hebrew, experience is chavaya, from the word chava. So she's named, in a sense, after this human desire for subjective experience. But it was, in a sense, mankind's undoing, that it didn't come in the right order. The experience should and could have happened, but after they ate from the tree of life. So that's obviously a tremendous lesson for us also, is that our experiences, from the very physical to the very spiritual, should all be in the context and the parameters of the Torah. And then experience is fine, including the very physical. And it's fine. But it needs to be in the right context. So we'll immediately connect it to something about Purim. That the Ari revealed that there are 5 major personalities in the Megillah, in the story of Purim. And they all have to do with the Garden of Eden. So the Ari says that Mordechai is the rectified spark of Adam. Esther is the rectified spark of Chava. Achashverosh is the unrectified spark of Adam. And Vashti is the unrectified spark of Chava. And guess who Haman is? The snake. So there's a way of reading the whole Megillah with that in mind.
Who's the unrectified spark of the second female?
Vashti is the unrectified spark of Chava. In other words, Adam and Chava, there was a rectified side and an unrectified side. And the snake is just a snake. That's Haman. And so if you just keep that in mind, we don't have time to go through the whole Megillah now. But when you keep that in mind, then it's like a whole sub-story is happening. And remember, how does Haman die? And then he's hung on a tree, right? On an eitz. And this is, in a sense, hinting to the Eitz Adat. That he's the one who tricked Chava into eating from the tree. And in the end, he's hung on the tree. So that's one connection. We're going to go through a number of other connections here. Okay, so the sin of the golden calf is it's a huge matter. It's very hard for us to treat all the insights that we can here. But okay, you know what? Since we're on the Parsha Purim track already, I'm going to continue with that a little bit. So we see there's actually 4 different, we could come up with more, but 4 major areas where the Parsha and Purim work in tandem here. So we already discussed one, this connection of Gan Eden with the story of Purim and with the whole receiving of the Torah, and then the sin of the golden calf. The sin of the golden calf, like I said, it's like eating from Eitz Hadat Tov Ra, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, before the right time. And we see a very deep connection there because we're told that if Adam and Chava would have waited till Shabbos, then they could have eaten from the Eitz Hadat Tov Ra. Because in the context of Shabbos, first of all, they eat from the Eitz Chaim, the tree of life. And on Shabbos, it would have changed the whole nature of the tree of knowledge. So worshiping the golden calf is like eating from the Eitz Hadat Tov Ra too early. Why? Because just like they couldn't wait till Shabbos in the Garden of Eden, they couldn't wait till Moshe came down from the mountain. In other words, what happened is there was basically a misunderstanding when Moshe was supposed to come down. And so it says when the people saw that Moshe was late in coming down, but really he wasn't late at all. It's just that they calculated, they made a mistake. But either way, even let's say he was late, the fact that they couldn't wait another hour, another day, and they had to rush and make the golden calf, it's the same kind of mistake that they made in the Garden of Eden. And we're told, I learned this from Rav Ginsburg, that there are 3 major sins that all had to do with the inability to wait. Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, they couldn't wait until Shabbos to eat from the tree. Here with the golden calf, they couldn't wait another few hours, another day for Moshe to come back. And with David and Bathsheba. Because we're told that David and Bathsheba were soulmates from the 6 days of creation. Like they were like really soulmates. But David couldn't wait until the circumstances would make it more proper for him to be together with Bathsheba. So all 3 of these, and the only other major sin that from the Chumash is the sin of the spies, and that we listen to the spies. But the 3 of the 4, the same thing, the inability to wait. So it's interesting that the word for wisdom, chachma, when you just change around the letters, is michakeh. The wisdom to know how to wait. Lechakot is to wait. And it's something we're all challenged with, right? How many times even our intellect says, just wait a few minutes, wait a day, next week, but we gotta plow ahead at the wrong time and just mess everything up. So the wisdom of knowing how to wait is a true wisdom. It's a real wisdom. Okay, so what are the connections? The golden calf, and according to the Gemara, what did we do, in a sense, to, I wouldn't say to deserve, but to put ourselves in the position that Haman could almost wipe us out? And the answer, the Gemara says, because we got pleasure at the feast of Achashverosh. And it's brought down, like, what was the low point of that feast is when they brought out the golden vessels from the temple that they had looted, and they ate and drank from them. And Achashverosh comes dressed as the Kohen Gadol, and the clothings, the four basic clothings of a regular Kohen are called the white garments. The Kohen Gadol also wears those, but he has an additional four, and they're called the golden vestments. They're only the Kohen Gadol. So here you have both the downfall of the golden calf came through gold, and at the time of Purim also, that we were at the party and these things occurred and we still got pleasure from the party. It was considered like the worst of the worst of the worst. So that's a very deep connection here. That, like, what is the second of the Ten Commandments? You shall have no other gods before me. And what's explained is it's not just that we shouldn't believe in any other gods, but we shouldn't put our trust in any other force, whether it's money, power, job, profession, fame, whatever it is, whatever people put their trust in. Government, a party, an ism, whatever it is, a philosophy. And the golden calf, in a sense, represents a lot of this. This whole idea of the gold of the golden calf. And so that's why in literature, the reference to the golden calf as putting your trust into something other than God, it's become like a very convenient symbol of making money into a golden calf, or making power into a golden calf. Whatever we put our trust in other than God, in a sense, symbolically becomes our golden calf. So we see this deep connection between the gold in both stories, and also eating and drinking. Because it says, when they made the golden calf, it said they sat down to eat and to drink, and then they got up and got into worse things. And the same thing at the feast of Achashverosh. It was all about eating and drinking. And that's why we have a feast of Purim. So first of all, you might think, and it would be very good logic, the last thing that we would want on Purim is a feast with a lot of drinking, because that's how we got into trouble in the first place, in both of these incidences. I mean, they had made the golden calf already. But actually, the Slonimer explains a very, very, very deep understanding. When Moshe is up in the mountain, so God tells them, you better go down. They're worshiping a molten image. So when Moshe came down, he knew what to expect already. It wasn't like it was a surprise that he was going to see them around a golden calf. And it doesn't say he got angry on the mountain. In fact, he already started, Hashem, please forgive them. But when he came down, it says, and he saw them dancing around the golden calf, it says Moshe got angry and he took the tablets and he broke them. So the Solomon wants to know, what did he see that got him so angry that he didn't know already? He already knew and he was already begging for forgiveness. And yet when he saw them dancing around, so the Solomon explains like this, very beautiful. He said that even when a Jew sins, deep down inside, he knows it's wrong. Deep down inside, but he or she doesn't have the strength not to do it, or the moral fiber or whatever at that moment. But deep down inside, you know that it's wrong. All of us remember being teenagers, so we could probably remember very well lots of things that we did wrong. And you know what? We knew that it was wrong. But we went ahead and did it anyways for 100 different reasons. So when Moshe sees them dancing around, he's like it's one thing that they're worshiping the golden calf, but they're dancing around it. In other words, they don't feel bad about it. So the Solomon Rabbi says at that moment, Moshe knew that he had to do something very drastic. Because it's one thing to sin, and it's another thing not to feel bad about sinning. So he did something totally radical by breaking the luchot, the tablets, and that it did shock them. It shocked them back into reality. So you would think that the last thing that the sages would want on Purim is like a drunken Suda, drunken feast. But that's exactly what we're doing. Excuse me. Because we have to fix it.
To do it right.
Yeah, we have to do it right. That the drinking should be for holiness, the eating should be for holiness, the joy should be for holiness. No golden calves, no golden vessels from the temple. And we should do it right this time. So that's why they say that after the story of Purim, once they said it, so it says Kimu v'kiblu. They established it and received it. And the sages say it's more than they just accepted the holiday of Purim. It means they accepted the Torah. They accepted the Torah in a way that they hadn't even at Mount Sinai. So that's another very deep connection. Because here Moshe is coming down with the luchot, with the tablets, but we didn't receive it the first time. He broke them. And only after 80 days of pleading with Hashem, Moshe comes down with the second luchot. And we did receive it. But the whole thing wasn't totally from free will. But at the time of Purim, we're told it was from total free will. We made a complete fixing there. Okay, so now I want to give over also like a very, very amazing Torah about Purim, but it connects to the Parsha also. So I'll start with the Parsha where, and I'm going to have a little introduction to it because we're told that this is really Moshe's shining moment when he says to God, if you will not forgive the people, then wipe me out of the book that you have written. And we're told that this is like the highest level of the two most pronounced qualities of Moshe. One in Hebrew is bitul, self-nullification. And the second is compassion. That these are the two main traits of Moshe. And that's why he says, im ayin, if not, mecheni na mesifrecha asher ketafta. Wipe me out of the book that you have written. So what does it mean, im ayin? Ayin means nullification, nothing, ein sof. Coming to the place what's called nothingness, making yourself nothing in relationship to Hashem. So Moshe reached that level so he could say, wipe me out of your book. And of course, here he's like offering his life. He's putting his life on the line. And it's coming from compassion. And that's why, if you remember at the burning bush, there's a deep mirror image of what's going on. If you remember, if you take Moshe's name backwards, He Shin Mem, it's Hashem. And that Moshe's name is 345, and the name that God reveals to him, and to him only, the only time God reveals this name in the whole Tanakh, is Ekia Asher Ekia, I will be that I will be, is 543. Moshe's 345. This name is 543. And at the burning bush, God is trying to, in a sense, bring out Moshe's latent potential. And Moshe is trying to draw out of God, like, who are you? What is your name? So each one is trying to draw out of the other. And remember, when God calls him, he calls him Moshe, Moshe. Again, a mirror image. Moshe, Moshe. So here, why am I mentioning it now? Is at this point, Moshe reaches the pinnacle of self-nullification and compassion. And as a result, God reveals to him what are called the 13 midot harachamim, the 13 aspects of compassion. So it's here. Why did God reveal it here? Is because a human being reached such a level of compassion that God could now reveal this in the world. So as part of revealing the 13 midot harachamim, so it says like this. It's in Lamed Gimel, Chaf Aleph, 33:21. So it says, V'yomar Hashem hinei makom iti v'nitzavta ala tzur. So this is in preparation for receiving the 13 midot harachamim. God says, behold, there is a place with me, and I will place you in the cleft of the rock. And then he says, and I will pass before you, and my back you will see, but not my front. God had already told him that you can't see my front and live. So Rashi says an amazing thing about what does it mean there is a place with me. So he says like this. Rashi says, Ve'omer hamakom ve'omer hamakom iti ve'eno omer ani b'makom So Rashi says, the text says there is a place with me, and it doesn't say I am in this place. Why? Shakadosh Baruch Hu makomo shel olam ve'enu olamo makomo. Because God is the place of the world, but the world is not his place. So this is the epitome of paradox. God is the place of the world, but the world is not his place. And if you remember, we learned that one of the ways we refer to God is hamakom, the place. And remember, we learned that if you take the 4 letters of God's name, Yud, Kei, Vav, Kei, and you multiply them by themselves, Yud times Yud, Hey times Hey, Vav times Vav, and Hey times Hey, it equals Makom. But here, God is the place of the world, but the world is not his place. So there's a very deep connection with Purim also. When Mordechai finds out, when Mordechai finds out about the plans of Haman, so he sends word to Esther. He says, you have to, I'm cutting corners here, but he says, you have to go into the king and plead for the people. And she sends back, but I haven't been summoned. And you're not allowed to just go without being summoned. And Mordechai sends back and says that Revach ve'atzala yamod liYehudim b'makom acher. That if you don't go in, salvation will come from mimakom acher, from another place, but maybe you and your father's house will be destroyed. And who knows if it wasn't for this moment that you were put in this position. Esther hears him, and the story, of course, changes. She does go in and begins the process of exposing Haman. So the question is, what does it mean that salvation will come from another place? So this very simple understanding is Mordechai says, listen, I guarantee you God is going to save us. The only question is, are you going to be the agent or not? Because if you're not, it will come from another place. So that's the simple understanding. The Slonim Rabbi says a beautiful thing. He says, it's alluding to something much deeper here. And he explains like this. He says that there are 2, call it systems of how the world operates. System 1 is it runs on judgment, on din, on mida keneged mida. In other words, cause and effect. The world has a way of running on cause and effect, a measure for a measure. We're judged on Rosh Hashanah. The world is judged on Rosh Hashanah. The judgment is passed down, and then it's carried out. But then, in an individual's life, in a nation's life, where, according to the regular system, there's no chance of salvation or redemption. It's like the cards have been cast. So then what happens? So Slonim says God has another place, a makom acher, that he can, in a sense, like pull a rabbit out of his sleeve. Not the greatest example, but the idea is that God has a covenant with the Jewish people. So, according to Mida Keneged Mida, a measure for a measure, Haman might have been able to carry out what he wanted to carry out, God forbid. We had lost our merit. But that's when the second system kicks in. And that's what Mordechai is hinting to. That if you don't go through the motions, salvation will come from another place. It will come from left field. It will come from outside of the stadium altogether. So I learned this on Shabbos. And then Motzi Shabbos we had a Malava Malka, and Leah Golem was teaching, and she made the following statement. She said that Achashverosh threw 2 feasts. One was 180 days, and then the second feast was 7 days. And it was only on the 7th day of the second feast that Achashverosh is, at this point, so drunk, he says to his queen, I want you to appear, basically, with just your crown. And she refuses, and she's killed, which paves the way for Esther to become queen, which paves the way for her to be in the position to expose Haman. That happens on the 187th day. So when she said that, the light bulb went off in my head. What is the numerical value of makom? 186. What's makom acher? The 187th day. The very day, now listen to this. This is like such a deep paradox. On the very day that we lost all of our merit, on the day that we lost all of our merit, God makes it that the seed of our redemption is sowed on that very day. Because that's when Vashti refuses to come. And like I said, and she's killed, and now Esther can become queen. Everything. So I thought, that's makom acher. Because it's the last, the last place that you would think that our salvation would come from. Isn't that the place where we fell? How could it be the place of our salvation? No. God made it that they both are happening at the same time. So what this reminds me of is after the brothers sell Yosef. So there's a famous midrash. It says like this. Reuven is busy with sackcloth and ashes because he wasn't able to save Yosef. Yaakov is sitting in sackcloth and ashes because he thinks Yosef is dead. Yehuda goes down from his brothers because he blew it. Yosef is sitting in sackcloth and ashes because he's now a slave. So the Midrash says, and what was God doing? He was paving the way for Mashiach. He was paving the way for Mashiach. How? Because from Yehuda going down and getting married and having sons, he ends up in a crazy way sleeping with his daughter-in-law, from which the seed of David HaMelech comes. And Yosef is sold into slavery, and he rises up to be second in charge in order to be able to save his family from the famine. So the Midrash starts like everything is going wrong. Like everything that could possibly going wrong is going wrong. And what is God doing? He's paving the way for Mashiach. So it's the same thing in this makom acher. That sometimes, if we look in our own lives, or you look in history, the place of redemption is coming from the most unlikely place. And sometimes it's when we think that we're the farthest away, that's when the seeds of redemption are being seeded. That's the makom acher. Because it's not working like the regular logic. The regular logic is cause and effect, a measure for a measure. The judgment is passed and it's carried out. But the makom acher is God has his ways, as the expression goes. God has his ways. And so here with the story of Purim, the expression is the kilkul, the spoiling, is the seeds of the fixing. But if you only have like superficial eyes, all you see is the spoiling. All you see is everything going wrong. You have to have Mashiach eyes to able to see how the redemption is being born. It's not our own lives, it's a few years before, but the same thing. Could anyone imagine in the depths of the Holocaust that basically the state of Israel was being born? It's like, so that's the makom acher. So the same thing here in this Parsha, when God says, there is a place with me, and I will hide you in the cleft of the rock, and I will pass before you. And God revealed the 13 midot rachamim. So the 13 midot rachamim is like when the regular system of justice is, or not just justice, the regular system of the way the world works is not enough to bring redemption on a personal level or a national level. It has to come from a makom acher. So God says, there is a place with me that even when everything is going wrong, I will still save you. And we see it here in the story of the golden calf, that this is like the worst of the worst of the worst. Can you imagine just 40 days after hearing God's voice on Mount Sinai, they're dancing around a golden calf? On the very day that Moshe is supposed to bring down the Luchot? So according to and that's why God begins by saying, please move out of my way and I will destroy the people. And I'll start all over from you. In other words, the first system of how the world should work in a way, according to strict judgment, is the people, chas v'sholom, this, in a sense, deserve to be wiped out. So, but there had to be this second system called compassion. And that's why Moshe pleaded for compassion, and God accepted it. God accepted it. could we imagine what would happen if Moshe said, okay, okay, I'm your new Avram. Do what you got to do and start all over from me. So because Moshe could dig that deep within himself to bring out compassion, so in a sense, it created the right time for God to now reveal His 13 Midot Rachamim. So I end with a bracha. That this time we get it right. that this Purim we're able to kimu v'kiblu, we're able to receive the Torah again from complete free will. Now I'll add another little Torah here as part of the bracha, that one of the deepest secrets, hopefully you can all remember this, everyone out there who's listening to this, I hope you hear this before Purim, and you can keep it in mind, that we're told that we're supposed to drink ad delo yada, eitz hadat tov v'ra, tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's what we're trying to fix on Purim. And this is what Rabbi Nachman said, that the greatest knowing is that I don't know. So we said we're supposed to drink ad delo yada, ben borach Mordechai ve'ar Haman. Blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman. So the numerical value of Baruch Mordechai equals exactly Or Haman. That you don't know, right? You don't know that between Baruch Mordechai and Or Haman. And then there's one other phrase that has the same numerical value. Emunah pshuta. Simple faith. Simple faith. So it takes tremendous faith to be able to see that all the good in the world and all the evil in the world it's all part of one unity. And it's not, God does not create evil, but He does create the place for people to choose evil. So in that sense, it's all coming from God. But we need tremendous, simple faith to be able to not know the difference between Baruch Mordechai and Or Haman. Because we're trained the whole year to want to that the good should triumph, that the light should triumph, and of course it should. But we have to realize that all the evil in the world also somehow is part of the plan. It's part of the story, and we have to see beyond these two diametrically opposed forces, and to see that it's all coming from one place. And we should have the bracha that we can help the light to shine and help redemption to come, and that we could get beyond the dualities of good and evil, eitz hadat tov v'ra. It all goes back to to this tree. So on Purim, if we can get to that place of like just clinging to the Eitz Chaim, just cling to the Eitz Chaim, and we should see the full redemption soon and hopefully this week.